Welcome back to the Token Intelligence Show, where John and I are trying to figure out AI and life, and you get to follow along with our successes and failures. We have a great topic today. John, I'm amazed at how the productivity hacks with AI have changed so unbelievably fast over the last couple of years. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the very first iteration of this was prompt engineering.
Yes.
And it was eventually called prompt engineering. But even before that, I remember it was like in a past episode, we mentioned sort of hacks for Google search, where you could do site : and it would, Google would search a particular site or whatever. Right? And so the AI version of this was you give the model a persona before asking your question, right? So you are a, technical writer at Vercel, right? And that sort of, will warm the model up to operate in a, with that persona as the pervading context, right? And then, of course, it went on to context engineering, beyond prompt engineering, which is where you're loading the context window with a bunch of relevant data. And then even the way that you do that changed dramatically in the last couple months, where you used to do that by actually loading loading a bunch of stuff into the context window in the context of an API call. And now the prevailing architecture is doing that with a bunch of markdown files, in a sandbox or locally on your computer, which is crazy. So it's been hard to keep up with. Oh, and then skills is another major iteration where you're actually manually loading skills that your agent can use and reach for while it's executing various tasks. So productivity with AI has been kind of hard to follow. And earlier this week, you and I were talking about maybe the simplest way to get more out of AI. And so do you want to tell us your deep, dark secret about?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'll start this by my stance, maybe late last year, or focus late last year. So late last year, I was spending a ton of time doing research and optimization, basically around the vectors you just described. So number one, prompt engineering, trying to understand it, trying to get good at it. Number two, context engineering, trying to understand it, trying to get good at it. Researching tools, trying tools out that essentially each uniquely combine those two things in some way, right? And learned a lot, and there's a lot there, but I was pretty focused on that and really felt like, there's just a ton of value that's going to be delivered in this layer, and then up in the application layer kind of on top. And I think there's still some value there, but let's just say if I was an investor, I would be nervous investing in that layer.
Can I give a really specific example of that? So prompt engineering has already been productized.
Okay, how so?
In that I think in two ways. So we're going to release an episode about using a tool called V0, which is a vibe coding tool. And I don't know if you remember when we were recording that, but I put a prompt in, and then they have a prompt enhancer, right? And it just really made it did prompt engineering on my behalf by interpreting my intent, and then in more advanced tooling like Claude or Cursor, etc., you actually have a deliberate plan mode, which is a way better way to do prompt engineering, is to actually build a plan and then have the
which I don't know if you heard this episode. The guy who created Claude Code, Boris, was on Lenny's podcast in the last couple of weeks, maybe last week. He was so funny. He's like, plan mode is great. You should use plan mode, et cetera. He said, it's all plan mode is a prompt to tell it to plan and not write code.
Yes.
It's that's all it is.
It's prompt engineering.
Yeah. And then another example of that. But prompt engineering, engineering is that's an exaggeration.
It was the wrong word.
Anybody, that's what it's called. But anybody could tell it, hey, plan and don't write code, and then ask it like, hey, this is what I want. Like, do a little meta engineering, like, tell it to plan and don't write code.
Right.
Like, how would you best say that? And then it gives you like 2 sentences and you have plan mode.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. That wasn't intuitive, but it was absolutely possible.
Right.
And now it's just been productized into the form factor.
So you can, so exactly. So there's some meta prompting that happens like in V0 and other tools where you click, this is what I think I want, and you click a button and it like kind of rewrites it.
Yep.
And you're like, oh yeah, that is what I want.
Yeah.
Productized for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the other thing, which I think gets closer to your stance, is that it's actually way more cost effective to do that up front, because the model is putting together a plan, which is way cheaper than actually building something or doing more complex reasoning around, how to actually create something.
Right.
Is just reasoning about what to do and the approach that should be taken, which you then validate.
Right.
And so you not only save cycles on, going back and forth with additional prompts to fix things that aren't necessarily right, but I think it's literally just cheaper for the model to do that kind of work than it is to actually generate net new assets.
Yeah. And I think actually part of this is like a little bit of a change of viewpoint. Like, I still think that's true, but, and actually this is a perfect segue. So we've talked about this on previous episodes. There's this new open source tool called OpenClaw, and then like a million clones of it out there. And the idea behind it was like, this is a tool that actually does things. So you're used to chatting and like getting information and having it like prototype some code or maybe write some real code. This thing will actually do things like read your email and then you can tell it to send email. Haven't done that, don't recommend that, but you get the point. And then a million other things with personal productivity kind of being like the bent, but like some other creative things too.
Yeah.
So that's OpenClaw.
I would describe it as, an area where you and I see, and it's interesting. I think a lot of the world who's not directly involved in software engineering doesn't necessarily see how much the software engineering role has changed fundamentally forever, because AI is doing things that a human once did. The really big paradigm shift for OpenClaw is that, or one of them, there are many, is that it runs on your computer and it can do normal, quote unquote, normal things, right? It's not building software. It can check your email.
Exactly.
It can research hotels. It can, it can use a browser.
Right.
It can click. It can navigate.
Make a PowerPoint file, Excel file, Word.
Exactly.
Doc. Yeah.
And so it very much is sort of bringing that like software, the fundamental change of software engineering into more normal computer tasks.
Yes. Right. Yeah. And then there's been products on top of that. I think Cowork is a product that kind of sits on top of this layer that makes it a little bit more friendly, more of a friendly UI. Anyways, but like back to the OpenClaw thing, the Cowork as an example you can chat with it and it can do the things. The like extra level that this open source project has is it can do things more autonomously.
Yes.
So you can like leave it a set of instructions or leave it a to-do list, and it can kind of check the to-do list throughout the day, do some work on the to-do list, and kind of update you as it works. Like that's the most kind of unique piece of it.
Yep.
Anyways, so the guy that built that, I checked on some stats here this week. It is an open source project. What that means is all of the source code is visible, auditable, readable, and usable by anyone for free. It is on GitHub, which is a super common place to put code, especially for open source projects.
Yep.
It is either number 2 or 3 all time on all of GitHub as far as the number of people who have started or like favorited it in like 3 months.
What?
React, I think, is ahead of it. And there may be one other repo. That's it. All time.
That's unbelievable. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm clearly speechless.
Yeah. Yeah. So very popular in the developer community, obviously.
Right.
And this guy, Peter Steinberger, started it. He had sold a company a few years ago, and it was just kind of a hobby project. And then he was talking with Meta and OpenAI, I think, and then ended up deciding to join OpenAI. And then this OpenClaw thing is in like some kind of foundation.
Right.
And OpenAI is like sponsoring the foundation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what
We'll
else
see what
happening
happens
there.
with
We'll
it,
see
yeah.
what happens there. But all that to say, I listened to the podcast with Peter Steinberger, the founder there, and Lex Friedman. It's like a 4-hour podcast. But the things that were striking is, number one, which with what's talking between Lex and Peter. Peter's like, I don't want to run. I don't want to do this again. Like, I don't want to start another company. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
This is before he announced what he was going to do.
Okay.
But even on that podcast, it
Interesting.
was like clear he was going to partner up with somebody.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. Number two is his draw to like who to join was basically like, who's going to give me the most tokens and who has like the best models, even like the unreleased models. Like that's all he cared about.
Really?
Yeah. That's what it seems from the podcast.
So just more tokens.
Yeah. And then of course he wants to like smarter pre-release models or whatever.
Of course.
And then it just got me thinking, like, and Lex asked him on the podcast, like, well, I mean, how much are you spending a month, like now on this open source project? Because he's got like a Discord and he has some of his personal like bots or claws or whatever you want to call them in the in this community that people can talk to. And he was like, I don't remember the exact number, but he was like, maybe like $20,000 a month.
Okay, let me. Just on him running his own bots, or on him continuing to develop out OpenClaw as a project?
I think it was both. I think it was a combination.
So that's his all-in
bots
running the whole OpenClaw empire, continuing development on the open source product, and running the community and all the bots associated with that.
He didn't give like specific breakdown, but my impression was that like 20, 30-ish grand burn per month was like just him. Didn't involve like employees or paying salaries or anything, I don't think. And then essentially was all like token budget.
Goodness gracious.
So even if I'm like half wrong and like let's say half of that was the tokens and he had some other expenses
let's just
I'm
say
unaware
it's
of.
$15,000 a month on tokens.
It got me thinking, like, how is he spending that much money a month on tokens and what is he doing with it?
Right.
Well, and then I read another article or heard another podcast where somebody was estimating how many tokens their top engineers were spending. And they said, I think this was the Boris podcast, they said more than their salaries. So there's engineers, I guess this is like Anthropic, that are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in tokens. But I don't
year.
know what
Like,
salaries
that's their
there. I
run
mean,
rate.
some of the salaries are pretty high there. So like hundreds of thousands of dollars is the run rate of their spend. So it just got me thinking, like, that I could not, if I tried, even if I worked all the time, have a terminal, even multiple terminals open and working and switching between things and prompting, and and get to $100,000
In a
and
year
spend
or in a month?
hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, or let's say 10 or 15 grand a month. Like I don't know how I would do that.
Okay, can I challenge that a little bit?
Okay.
Because so number one, this makes me think about how many tokens I'm using at Vercel,
Right.
because on the marketing team, I don't know the exact numbers, and this is just on the marketing team. We have an enormous token budget. And
Yeah, I'm sure.
We use it very, very heavily. I mean, to put it in context, the conversations that I'm having with our head of growth, which we collaborate on a number of things,
Right.
we talk a lot about our like Claude setup, right?
Okay,
And
sure.
the skills and
Yeah.
Claude MD and all that sort of stuff, right? So it's a I would say like an atypical marketing team,
Right.
Not for long, but
Yeah. Right.
so I want to think about that, because I do think we probably like over-index on that. But the other thing that I would say is, do you think that you're limited by the fact that you actually have budget constraints? Like you couldn't spend, $500,000 on tokens in a year in a way that produced return on investment or even broke even
Right.
for your business, right?
Right.
But if you had unlimited tokens, would that change the way that you think about what you would even try? Because I think
Well-
about someone at Anthropic, and it's like, if you have a literally unlimited budget and tokens, you're going to think about crazier things to build.
Yeah. Well, and the answer, and again, maybe these numbers are a little bit inflated and they're like kind of actual value versus like consumer value.
Yeah.
Because I currently, let's say, and I don't have this currently, but I'm considering it. Let's say I had two plans, $200 a month for OpenAI's like top plan, $200 a month for Claude's. Real dollars, that's, I don't know, $5,000 a month of tokens, maybe 10 in like real dollars if you're using the API. So I think I would struggle to spend every one of those tokens today.
Interesting.
Because the plans are pretty generous, especially at the top tier. So because and the reason I say I would struggle, because I had kind of a little emergency in like previous week, and ended up using it for a ton of research and validation, all sorts of things, and like hours and hours and hours, and like almost ran out of my weekly limit. But I would never want to work like that on a regular week.
Oh, interesting.
So,
but that's also emergency response versus like building
like net
an
new
ambitious
building.
idea.
Yeah. But, okay. So here's where I'm going with this.
Okay.
And what changed my thinking on it, and how Peter could be spending, that much a month. And the answer is in the product, is in his OpenClaw product, is the thing's autonomously doing things. Like that's how you can spend that much. So the product has a thing which is super weird. It's called a heartbeat file. Let that sink in.
We're totally going to do, well, we've already planned an episode on like a personified relationship with AI, but we'll save that for later.
And it kind of woke me up to like how you could spend that much. And a heartbeat file is just a text file with a list of instructions. And then there is a scheduled job that wakes up the AI on a schedule. 30 minutes, I think, for his product is default. You can set it to whatever you want. And it reads the instructions, and it does things, and it goes back to sleep and wakes up again in 30 minutes. So you imagine you had a computer running all day, and it's going to wake up every 30 minutes and work through, let's call it a task list.
Yep.
And for sake of argument, like if you kept a task list fed, where every time it wakes up, there's comments from what it did before or comments from you.
Yep.
And then there's a ton of YouTube videos about this, like now, where people are doing stuff like this. That's what got me thinking like, oh, okay, that's how you spend $15,000.
Yep.
And that's like native to his product and kind of a unique thing. And none of the major labs like OpenAI or whatever tool you use, Claude, have a feature like that, partially because of the risk, I think. Because it's acting, it's running, it is unmonitored, it's autonomous, it's unmonitored.
Right.
Which has a lot of inherent risk in it. So that's why they're not doing it yet.
Yep.
And that's probably why it's wrapped in a foundation. When they bought OpenClaw, they're like, that can't be a first class product right now. We need to wrap that in a foundation so we don't get sued.
Yeah, totally.
But that was the realization of like, oh, that's how you spend that much money.
Right. Have you done the math on that? I'm trying to back into it a little bit right now.
Like if the thing basically works every 30 minutes for some.
Yeah.
Like how many tokens you would spend in like a year?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm looking at it right now. Okay.
I haven't done the math.
So.
But that's the only way I think I could get to
Here,
the math.
I have some math. You ready?
Yes.
So I'm just going to back into this. So if you run Opus 4.6 on standard pricing and you just run it, at 75% utilization. Okay. So let's just say if it's doing a task, right, it's sort of going to oscillate.
Right.
But let's just say it executes a task, we'll say 30 minutes.
Okay.
That is going to be $3
every 30 minutes.
$3 every 30 minutes. And so if you do that for a full day, you're going to be at like $130 to $150.
Okay.
And so if you're doing that every single day, you're over $4,000. If you're doing it 24 hours a day for 30 days
for
straight,
a month.
for a month.
Yeah, so you still...
So you're
then
at
imagine
$4,000.
you had multiple of them,
Then
right?
you have multiple, right? So then
yeah, that's how you get there.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that
so
was that was my math.
Yeah.
And that, like, if I'm a human, like, yeah, I didn't do like the like math like you just did it, but my rough math was like, there's no way. Like, it's a few $1,000s. But if you run multiple of them,
right,
and they're like auto waking up or whatever, like that's how you get to like
100%,
15 or 20 grand.
100%, right.
Yeah. So then the question is like, what can I do? What things can you work that way and what things can you not? So
yeah, like is that even useful?
Yes,
like
exactly.
It's possible, but
right.
Is it useful?
Right. And like us nerds are famous for doing things possible and not useful. Like it goes back a long way.
It goes back. Yes.
So I've got two categories. I've got one which is like creative, exploratory, like thinking work almost. So let's say I wanted to like update the messaging on my website to like add more AI stuff.
Right.
Like that one I probably want to do interactively and like think as part of the process.
Yep.
And I would think that any sort of content, like that's how I'd want to approach it. Or even certain content, I might want to not use it at all and just use like voice to text or just like plain write.
Yep.
Because it's part of the thinking is a core part of it. But from a dev workflow, so say I've got some like really clear outcome, but to get there, there's like complicated orchestration and workflow and data modeling, like and et cetera. That one, the question is, and I'm trying to pay attention like as I like test things right now. Okay, like here's me and here's my prompting, and then like what value am I adding? Versus if I had this thing on a loop and it just like looped every 30 minutes and like fed what it did last time back into itself, like what are the comparable outcomes if I had a really crisp like outcome of what I wanted?
Yeah. So and
that's, I think, the more tokens come into
that would be a shift from I start with, so you're really over indexing for the outcome,
right?
For your definition of the outcome,
right?
Instead of sort of having a more ambiguous, having a less defined outcome and then guiding along the way.
Right.
So you have a super specific outcome and the model is looping, which the industry term for this is Ralph Wiggum.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And there are even tools called Ralph, which is a hilarious sort of
internet meme.
Yeah, deep Simpsons internet meme.
Right.
But instead of you guiding the model as it executes autonomous work, you just have it reference the super crisp outcome that you've defined,
right.
And it evaluates deviation from that and then loops again until it gets there.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
And so essentially it could perform the same task over and over and over and over and over. Right. It doesn't matter. It's just going to get closer and closer with each iteration.
Well, in the full loop to where we started is prompt engineering, context engineering, et cetera, et cetera. And then the open question in my mind is like, if I'm the one doing the prompting and like actively working a problem, that's valuable to me. But if I can get the same result and just have the loop run twice as much, do I care? Because the one is actively like using my time because I'm reading it and like directing or whatever.
Sure.
But if it would have gotten to that same destination, which was clearly defined, and autonomously it needed say like 10 more reps, then I could have gotten there in 10 reps fewer, which is less token spend. But if it could do it autonomously with 10 extra reps or 15 extra reps, then like that's a really interesting trade-off. And like probably my time is more valuable than like sitting there and directing it to get there 10 reps faster or 15 reps faster. And I don't know the answer to this, but like I think people seem to be leaning toward like just give it the extra reps.
Yeah. Well, two initial thoughts come to mind. One is, at what point does the decrease in cost make that more of a default way of solving problems? Right? Because it is cost prohibitive today. So not everyone can.
It only sort of is. Like again, for $400 a month, which is not everybody wants to spend that, you can get basically an unlimited budget from the two major providers.
Yeah, that's true. That's
and
true.
use them together, and that's worth, say, $5,000. And based on your math, like, it works for like $400.
That is true.
But
but there's no way that lasts forever.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because that's essentially taking advantage.
Well,
so
and honestly, it probably works
is,
for $200 because OpenAI is like so aggressively pursuing devs right now. Like, you get a
huge
so
amount of tokens,
many
right.
tokens, and you can use them however they want. And Anthropic's
Yeah.
a little like, you can only use them in our tools. Like, but
so the punchline is get while the getting's good.
yeah,
go build
but
something awesome for
think
$200
about
a
it.
month.
They I don't know. I mean, you said like, I don't know if that lasts forever, and like, maybe not, but like your alternative right now is to use something downstream from that. And then you've got 2 layers of like,
Right.
of not lasting forever,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Or open source, or you can use like an open source
Right.
model, which, I mean, there's some really good ones. So that might be a good long-term play. But the other argument, however, is I do think there's value in the like, for now, better general intelligence in the frontier models. And I think there's value in all the like security stuff they're going to work on.
Yeah.
That like, if you're running a business, like something weird happens because you're using a Chinese model, like people aren't going to be super sympathetic for that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you decided to save a couple bucks.
So what are the areas, you mentioned a couple. So if you were doing website content, you would want to be there. You would want to be more involved in the process so that your
Right.
human input is guiding the process.
Actually, I mean, yes, but no. That actually isn't the primary reason. It's just more of a like thinking thing of like making sure I got to the outcome I wanted. Because maybe I'm not even starting. I'm starting with such a vague outcome. Let's say, just
Right.
for sake of argument, of like, I think the website needs to have more AI stuff on it. Like, and we're just gonna like kind of walk through what I think that means and tweak it and
Right.
whatever.
So it's actually part of it's augmenting a creative process that you're going to go
Right.
through either way.
Right.
As
Right.
opposed to, I think about, was it OpenAI that released a bunch of agents and built a browser? No, that was Anthropic.
Bunch of agents. Oh, right. They tried to rebuild Chrome.
They
right?
they rebuilt
Yeah.
a web browser, and
Right.
then what was the other one? A C compiler.
Yeah. And I think
Um,
there's like a bunch of hard-coded stuff or something in the C compiler.
right, but
But for sake of argument.
to draw the comparison, you have a process where your outcome, it's really sort of starting with the outcome and determining
Right.
whether or not throwing more tokens at it and creating a loop is the best way to handle it.
Right.
Because even with the browser situation, there's an unbelievable amount of documentation on browser specs. You can fork Chrome.
Yeah. Right.
And so the outcome is very, very clearly defined.
Yes.
And so that's actually a great use case for a
Right.
loop where you have the outcome,
Right.
you can measure deviation from the
Right.
outcome and just loop it until,
Right.
you sort of get there.
Right. Which would be interesting to see that browser like experimentation done again now, because I think when it was done before, it was done with some models that were like not as good.
Right.
Okay. Last thing for this topic. So it's like, where do we go from here? Like, say there are like a number of things that make sense to essentially have on a loop, and you can get to good outcomes. Then like, what's the skill set here for engineering? And again, I'm kind of stealing this. I think the answer is long horizon planning. So how good can you get at like planning like way higher level? And because before, like when things were so like significantly slower, that kind of didn't like matter. I mean, you had to have a rough everybody like had to have a rough idea of where they wanted to go, what they wanted to build.
Yep.
But I think the long horizon planning, like just you wouldn't plan like 3 years in advance or whatever. Like nobody's used to planning on the right time horizon. They're used to planning like quarterly and like know what like a quarterly amount of work is.
Right.
But then it turns into like, I need to think differently in planning, and like what maybe used to be like 3-year planning is now like a quarterly plan. But I've never really done a 3-year plan because it wasn't worth the effort.
Or the 3-year plan is is significantly distilled. Like there's not a lot of detail in it. It's just sort of
course.
directionally.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's almost like you're going to have to get good at like detailed 3-year plans, which are now accomplishable in a quarter, potentially.
Right.
Which essentially nobody's done that. Like as far as a skill set, like where do you find that skill set?
Totally. But then, okay, so you're doing all of this. Okay, so here's.
And I don't think that's a today problem. I think that's coming.
I agree. So let's divide this into 2 areas. So one area where I immediately see that providing utility, and I think already is, although I haven't actually researched this topic, but things like scientific research, new discoveries and other things like that, 100% compressing the 3-year plan into 3 months.
Yep.
I think there's immediate value today for that.
Right.
With other things, though, especially if you think about building a product, the big question in my mind is, and even if you think about OpenClaw, you compress 3 years of product development into 3 months.
Okay. Yep.
People can't consume that much product.
Sure.
Right?
Like the speed of change is too rapid.
You just
for like your users.
Your users like literally can't consume at that rate, and so there's almost this physical ceiling of, sort of what is the limit of where that has utility in terms of building products, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that is a great point because the assumption is that like there's utility in that, and then it becomes then the true bottleneck like emerges, which is like user adoption, like end customer bottleneck. That basically like there's no bottleneck before then.
Yes,
which has never been true.
Yeah, it's interesting. All right.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go look up how many tokens I'm burning on a daily basis.
Please do. All right.
Thanks for joining the show. We'll catch you on the next one.